Welcome to the Fear and Greed Afternoon Report for Thursday, the 6th of October 2022. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Let's jump into it. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 closed up just 2 points today. That's not much, to 6,808 points. That's pretty much flat. It was a rest day after the big jumps the previous 2 sessions. The energy companies led the way, with Woodside up 2.8% and Santos rising 2%. That's because oil prices are higher. Goodman Group, REA and James Hardie Industries, all stocks that ran very hard earlier in the week, all lost around 2.5% today. There you go. The big miners were generally higher while the banks and retailers were lower. A couple of notables, Burns specialist Polynovo posted record sales last month, sending its share price up 22%. Fund manager Magellan's share price fell 8%, the worst on the day, after it reported a 12% fall in funds under management last month, partly due to market gyrations, but also due to a loss of a large mandate. Story number 2, sentiment in the housing sector is tumbling, perhaps not surprisingly, and that will put further downward pressure on home prices. The National Australia Bank Residential Property Index surveys people who work in real estate, and sentiment has now dropped for 2 straight quarters. Sentiment is now negative in the ACT, in Tasmania, in New South Wales and in Victoria. While sentiment also dipped in South Australia and Queensland, those states, along with Western Australia, remain net positive about the market. Clearly, rising interest rates are hurting sentiment, and National Australia Bank Chief Economist Alan Oster expects peak to trough house prices to drop 20%. Ooh. So far across the country, they're only down about 5%, though in Sydney it's closer to 10%. Story number 3, Australia's trade surplus in August came in at $8.3 billion. Still a big number, but not as big as we've become used to in recent months. Exports jumped 2.6%, driven by coal sales, but imports rose even further, including fuel purchases. Overall, the surplus was $643 million lower during the month. Australia's had a run of months of very high trade surpluses, thanks to booming commodity prices, but the steam has come out of some of the things that Australia sells, such as iron ore, and so the era of massive surpluses could well be at an end. Mind you, we're still reaping the benefits of high coal and gas prices. Story number 4, the share prices of both Whitehaven Coal and New Hope hit record levels today. The jump in oil prices contributed to the rise, but coal is just the hottest commodity around the place at the moment. Whitehaven's share price jumped 8% and is up 280% this year. New Hope was up 3%, and it's up 190% for the year, and it isn't a coal company, but it's a very strong performer. Lithium group Pilbara Minerals hit a new high today as well, jumping 5%. It's up 250% since mid-June, which I knew about it then. And story number 5, the OPEC cartel, driven by Saudi Arabia and Russia, has agreed to cut production by 2 million barrels a day, or about 2% of global oil supply. Its argument is that the weaker global economy doesn't need as much oil, but with prices still very, very high, the US and Europe vehemently disagree. The reduction is the biggest cut since the beginning of the COVID crisis in March 2020, and the first time OPEC has cut so hard when prices are so high. The decision came just hours after the European Union agreed with the US plan to impose a price cap on Russian oil exports, hoping to drive prices lower. It's a slap in the face for the Biden administration, which was working hard to convince Saudi and other OPEC members not to make big cuts. This afternoon, the White House accused OPEC of aligning with Russia. The upshot of all this, oil prices are up 8% over the past week, and you and I are going to feel it at the petrol bowser. That's it for the afternoon report for Thursday, the 6th of October, 2022. Don't forget to hit follow on the podcast and find Fear and Greed on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Join Michael Thompson and I tomorrow morning for the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. The top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.